knowledgeable, been around business intelligence forever. His definition breaks it down into the two components of business intelligence, business and intelligence. So the first paragraph here, the ability of an organization or business to reason, plan, predict, solve problems, think abstractly, comprehend, innovate, and learn. So that's your intelligence part. And then the second part, in ways that increase organizational knowledge, inform decision processes, enable effective actions, and help to establish and achieve business goals. That's the business part. He really wanted to go into detail on each one of those terms to make sure that it was clear what we are talking about as we bring those two terms together. So there's a lot of detail there, but I think among these three definitions, the one I gave and Howard Dresner and Dave Wells, hopefully this gives you a pretty clear picture of what business intelligence is and why it goes beyond just technology. It really does involve the people and the processes as well, and the whole organization and the knowledge of the organization. That's a key part of it. So BI is used in a variety of ways within a company. You know, we told you there's a lot of components to it. So how do we actually get value out of it? There's different things we can look at. Sales chain or sales channel analysis. If you sell through your store, through the web, through mail order, through a 1-800 number, you want to know where you're selling the most product, and do you have price points that are different based on those different channels, and do people respond to that? And where can you get the biggest bang for your buck? So sales channel analysis, one thing to look at. Supply chain. Obviously, this is something that stores like Walmart have employed very extensively. They want to minimize their inventory. They want things showing up just in time, and knowing the size of Walmart, the number of products they carry, the shelf space they have, all the different things that get shipped to and from their suppliers to distribution centers, to the individual stores, back out to clients, returns. It's a huge, huge process. And being able to analyze that whole supply chain is very important for them. And it allows them to minimize their costs and maximize their profit, which is what business is all about. Productivity analysis. You may be trying to estimate how many manufacturers you need in your on your production line for the coming months, and you're basing that on estimates of how many of your products are going to be produced or bought. And you want to make sure you've got plenty on hand, but not too many. So you can do some of this productivity analysis, see how fast your people have been working, and that helps you to estimate how many you're going to need to have on the line for the coming months. Performance analysis. Again, are your items being produced in a high-quality manner? Do you have lots of rework? What about the rate of production of your people? Are they able to produce enough widgets per hour to meet the goals? And are some doing better than others? There's lots of things you can look at there. Marketplace analysis is another one. What markets are best for you to sell into? And lots of things you can look at with regard to markets and customers. Customer analysis, actually, I'll talk about that for a minute, is a big one. If you're a company, a retailer especially, it has lots of different customers. You want to understand your customer base really well. You want to know who your best customers are. And when I say who they are, what I'm really talking about is, what is their profile? What defines your best customer? Is it a female aged 35 to 45 that's married, has 2 kids, owns their home, and they've got 2 cars in the garage, and they own a pet? Maybe that's the profile of your best customer for your particular retail store. Another one may have something totally different. It may be males aged 50 to 60 that are financially independent and have owned a company in the past and like to play golf. There's a huge number of variables that you can analyze to figure out who your customers are, what they look like, and not only define your best customers, but define your worst customers. You want to keep an eye on that too, because you can treat them differently. Doesn't mean you have to be bad to them, but you may not be giving them the same perks and extras that you're giving your best customers. And if you lose a worst customer, you're not so concerned about it. However, if you lose one of your best customers, you may want to be able to predict if someone is thinking about leaving and do what you can to keep them on. You don't want to lose them. Behavioral analysis. This ties into back to your customer analysis as well. How do people behave? Do they respond to sales? Do they prefer to have regular pricing? What kind of advertising do they respond to? So again, when you have lots of information, lots of variables, business intelligence and business intelligence solutions can help you make sense out of it and get insights from it and allow you to make better decisions on how to run your business. So the value that we're looking at here, we want to look at the value chain. What drives BI? When you're looking at it from a business point of view, how do we analyze, how do we make decisions, how do we track information through our business processes? First of all, things that can happen to a company are, there's going to be drivers, the things that happen that the business may or may not be in control of. A big one this year, it's an election year. That's going to have an impact in different ways on different industries. The healthcare industry is certainly interested to see how the elections turn out this year. There could be a huge impact there. There's lots of regulations that healthcare companies are trying to decide, should they start working on now, or should they wait to see who gets elected to see if those same initiatives are going to get pushed through or not. So these are the external drivers that hit a company, and once they do, you need to figure out what we're going to do about it. Here's a few more examples of what might happen to a company that is causing them to do something. Well, once that driver hits, let's say it turns out that there is going to be some kind of change to healthcare regulations. Parts of the new healthcare laws get repealed or changed or pushed back or something. Well, now business needs to decide what to do with that. And what are they going to try to achieve because of it? So once that external or internal impact is recognized and acknowledged, then the company needs to set goals and objectives. They still want to potentially increase revenue. They want to make money in this new environment. They want to reduce costs. They want to make sure that they're still hanging on to their market share regardless of this new impact. So they've got something happen to them. They set their goals and objectives. And then they come up with strategies to meet those goals and objectives. Are they going to change their pricing? Do they need to sell new products? Do they need to open up new channels? Do they need to be more efficient? They're going to come up with strategies that will then help them achieve those goals and objectives. Now, moving forward, the strategies drive tactics. And tactics can be actually what you're doing that really addresses the strategy. Decrease the process time. Maybe you bring in a new supplier. You modify your pricing. There's different things you can do in a new environment to help you maintain market share, to help you stay more competitive, to keep your customers happy. So those actual things you do are the tactics. And then, as you're doing those tactics, you want to track the results. You want to see, did we actually increase the revenue? Were we able to successfully reduce production time and produce more material with the same, or more product with the same number of people, the same number of hours? And that's where we get the value. We want to either increase revenue, decrease cost, or improve customer satisfaction. That is going to help the business improve. We want more money in our pockets at the end of the day, and that's really what we're going after here. BI helps you do that. You can analyze results. You can analyze all the data that you have, and you can modify your tactics as you start getting feedback, as you start seeing the results. So what we're looking at here is along the top, you've got your business path, the business drivers through results. Well, down below, we've got a data life cycle here, an information life cycle. We track data all the way through to outcomes. And as we are doing a tactic, or performing a tactic, we're capturing data from that tactic. We're applying our knowledge to that data that we're capturing. And we're taking action. We make a decision when we take an action. We say we're going to put more people on the production line, or we're going to pull people off, or we're going to make people work overtime. Then we want to measure the outcome and see if it worked. So really, the actions we take tie into the tactics. That's where they link together. And we have to monitor the tactics. And we can make adjustments then based on how the tactics are performing. We measure the outcomes and feed that back into our information. So there's your feedback loop for you. We have the outcomes. It feeds back into the information, the knowledge, and the action. And that helps us adjust. We can decide what to do. And ultimately, we're still driving to the same place. We still want to see the value. We want to make more revenue, we want to decrease costs, or we want to keep our customers as happy or get new happy customers on board. So the data, the information life cycle tracks hand in hand with the business cycle. Now, there is a cost involved with tracking the information. Just to say that we're going to track the tactics and figure out how they're performing, that's a great thing to do. You want to do it. You want to measure it to find out how you're doing. But to do it, there is a cost involved. And really, that cost is the data warehousing in a BI solution. The data warehousing is the capture of the data, the organizing of the data, the centralizing of it, the integrating it, the conforming it, and making sense out of it so that we actually can turn data into information and apply our knowledge to it to enable us to make decisions and take actions. So as we're creating value, as we're tracking the business, as we're monitoring all the activities, the way we do that is by building a way to capture that information, organize it, and analyze it. And that's the data warehouse, and that is the cost that goes into the process of creating the value. One of the costs, I should say. So other values of BI, just to enumerate some of these values here. Data integration and integrity. You've probably, if you're not in the situation already, you've heard the stories about companies having two departments. They each produce what they think is the same report, but they've got different numbers on it, and a variety of drivers behind that. The intent of business intelligence is to make data consistent across an organization, and that can save a lot of time. That can help make better decisions. If your results on sales, for example, for the previous quarter were looking very good, maybe you decide because sales is so good, we ought to step up production. Well, if that sales number was wrong for some reason and your quarter wasn't quite as good or your projections weren't quite as good as you thought they were, and you stepped up production, you may end up just building stuff and putting it in inventory and not being able to sell it. And there's a big carrying cost with that. Also, BI also allows easy access to decision making. It's easier for people to get the information they need when they need it. We have this concept, we talk about data gophers. There's people that spend most of their time running around trying to find data off of different source systems, bring that data together, make sense out of it, figure out how it should integrate, try to decide what to include, what to exclude, how the data changed from last time. They end up spending about 80% of their time just figuring out how to bring the data together. That leaves them only 20% of their time to actually do their job. Their job may have been as a financial analyst, and they were supposed to look at who their best suppliers were for the last quarter. And they only have very little time left to actually dig through which suppliers are their best ones and why, and what can they do to be even better. They spent the whole rest of their time just finding the data to do that analysis. BI can help minimize that. Another item is quicker recognition of critical information. We want companies to see those anomalies. I want them to jump, the anomalies to jump out at the people making the decisions. They want to know if something is going very wrong somewhere so they can address it quickly. They also want to know if something is going very well somewhere. Did they suddenly start selling a product that is the next Cabbage Patch doll and people are going crazy for it? So any type of anomaly, you want that to jump out, good or bad, so that it can be acted upon very quickly. Another key thing, and this goes back to our base definition, are the decisions that are made are based on fact, not gut feel, not personality, not politics. You can have real numbers in front of you. You can say, here's the profit margin on this product, here's the profit margin on that product. One is significantly better than the other. And maybe we sell the same number of units, but we're not making any money on one of them. And if it's not a loss leader, if it's not causing customers to buy additional products, why are we continuing to manufacture and sell it? Maybe we should shut that down, put our efforts into selling more of the first product that has a much higher profit margin, and we'll be better off. But you're basing that on facts that are in front of you. You're not basing it on the fact that the son of the owner really likes that other product even though it has a low profit margin, and that's why it's been around for so long. You're able to bring together real information. You can show other people real evidence, real data, and it's much easier. It's not a silver bullet, but it's much easier to make decisions that way. And then the ability to predict future events. The holy grail of business intelligence is the predictive analytics. Being able to know what decisions to make when to move forward, when to invest in new products, when to shut products down, when to hire people, when to open new office locations. These are all things that we want to get to in a very mature organization that in an organization that has a mature BI solution. Very briefly here, I want to talk about how business intelligence is different from operational reporting. In most companies, there are reports that come out. Maybe you've got the Oracle financials, for example, running in your company, and you can get a report printed out of Oracle financials showing exactly what sales were for the last quarter. However, that information is not necessarily combined with other things like manufacturing capacity. All you have is the sales numbers. So the operational reports are focused on running the business day to day. They're very much transaction based. You know, how many units did we sell yesterday? We just want to know that. We want to be able to get information into our systems quickly. Think order entry. That's a good obvious one. We want orders to be entered into our order entry system very quickly. It's more of a clerical function. People get information and they type it right in. They're not really analyzing the data. They're not trying to. They're not being paid to. They're paid to get information into the computer system. We talked about third normal form. That's just a data structure that is optimal for getting data in quickly. It minimizes duplication of data, and it allows for very quick data entry. It's procedure bound. Here's how you're doing it. It's very well defined. You want to do it the same way every time. That helps to provide higher data quality at the source system. Everyone does things the same way. And it's there to operate the business. That's why it's called operational reporting. You're there to run the day-to-day activities. Now, on the other side, the business intelligence side, this is where the analytics happens. This is where you're thinking about the information that was brought together and made available to you. It's based on analysis. Again, we want to know who our top 10 and our bottom 10 suppliers are. We want to be able to get data out. The business intelligence solution, which again has a data warehouse and a BI tool probably as its cornerstone, is going to be structured so that you can run a report and get information out quickly. Usually it's the analyst. It's more of a professional function. We're asking people to be somewhat creative with their analysis and find new things. It's all about query performance and other functions like ad hoc and drill down. This is ways to get some more detailed data. But it really helps you run the business. Not just operate it day to day, but make the decisions that keep the business going and find those new opportunities. I want to talk now about the components of the BI solution. You know, I've talked about what value it brings, all the wonderful ways it can help you in a business, but what do you actually have to have in place to have a BI solution? The next few minutes here are going to sound a little bit intimidating because there's a lot to it. It's complex. There's a lot of pieces and parts. It does involve the whole organization. It involves not just technology, but people and processes also, as well as the data. The good news is you can build it incrementally and in layers. So we're going to talk about these layers here. And the first layer is the business layer. This is where we're talking about what the solution actually needs to do. Those are the business requirements. And what business value are we trying to get it to achieve? What business value will it be providing once it's built? Now on the sides there you see a program management solution development. The business intelligence solution is a program. It's going to start, but it's going to be ongoing. You're always going to be adding to it, enhancing it, making it better. So it's not something that has a start date and a stop date. It's got a start date and it's ongoing, but it is going to have incremental deliverables throughout its lifetime. So this is your business layer. You want to know what your solution should do. Then you've got your administration layer. This is where you start to talk about how it is we're going to operate this business intelligence solution. We need to know what it looks like. What's our BI architecture? And actually, there's several components to a BI architecture. It's not just the technical component, the technical architectures. You've also got the data architecture, the organization architecture, the business architecture, and the project architecture. All those need to work together and be defined so that you can actually start delivering something and operate it once it's built. There's some key things here. The data governance. One of the key things about a business intelligence and data warehousing solution is the quality of the data and the definitions of the data, knowing that people understand what the data is, where it came from, and how it should be used, and what it means when it's presented in a report. Data governance helps with that. It's a key function, and it's part of being able to operate the BI solution in a large organization. And finally, we get to the part where most of us are a little more comfortable envisioning, at least, and that is the data warehouse part. This is where we're bringing data together from data sources. We're using a function called extract, translate, and load, ETL, to load it into some kind of data storage. Just think databases. We're pulling data from sources, loading it into databases that we're calling data warehouse and or data marts. And that is going to then turn into your the supporting layer for your information reporting and delivery. There needs to be a way for the business users, for the people who need to see the data, to get to that data. And that's that reporting and delivery layer that we're talking about. Sometimes that's through business applications. We may be feeding information back to an ERP system, for example, and people get their information there. Or a lot of times it's through some kind of BI tool, a reporting and analysis tool. But that is what ultimately drives the value. When that information can be presented to the people that need it, when they need it, in the format they need it, in an understandable way, that's when value can be created the easiest. The technologies behind this are numerous. There's a lot here. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I want to point out that you've got many layers that build up the technical side of the BI solution. Starts out the lowest layer with your hardware, operating system, and basic infrastructure, including network infrastructure. Goes through your data sources. There's the concept of integrating data. That's a key part of data warehousing solutions, is the data integration, bringing data together from multiple sources. There's lots of tools and technologies out there that help you with that. The data warehouse layer is the database where you're combining the data. You've got the analytics engines that help analyze it. You've got further analytic applications that are more specific. And then finally, getting the information to the people that need it. That's your presentation layer and your front-end reporting tools. So the way the organizational model works here, at the highest level, you've got the BI program. And the key thing in all this is that first one in the upper left, the sponsorship. A BI program is large. It's somewhat intrusive because it involves so many different groups, both on the business side and the IT side. It takes time for people to participate in the development of the solution. It takes time for them to help keep the solution going. And there's a learning curve. They need to learn how to use the tools. So there's an interruption factor within an organization. And sometimes, as we know, organizations do not like change. So there's some pain going to be involved in rolling out a new solution. And that sponsorship has to be in place to make sure that people, either willingly or unwillingly, still move in the right direction. They play along and they participate in the development and in the use of the BI solution. Going down is the project level. Something is going to be built, and not just a data warehouse, but potentially processes need to be redefined. Maybe organizations are going to shift around a little bit. Maybe a BI team needs to be formed and people are going to be moving from one department to another. There may be liaisons assigned from different groups that are part of a data governance program. But anyway, there is going to be a lot of activity that needs to be managed like a project. And there are chunks, there are many pieces within a BI program that are individual projects, and they will be identified as such. They'll have a start date, they'll have a end date, they'll have a specific deliverable, and they'll have people assigned to produce different deliverables or do different tasks within that project. And then finally, the operations. This is something to consider too. Envision for a BI solution that you've defined what processes are going to be impacted, what businesses are going to use the solution, how people are going to be viewing the data. You've defined a technical architecture. You're going to build a data warehouse. You're going to have 3 data marts. There's going to be a enterprise BI tool that's put on top of those data marts. You've selected an ETL tool to do a lot of the coding. You've identified the data sources that all the data is going to come from. And that's something you build. And then keep in mind, all that is going to be operating continuously as far out in the future as you can see. So that is a large, complex system that needs to be operated. And that's what BI operations is all about. Every day, likely, there's going to be new data feeds coming into your data warehouse. Those need to be checked. They need to, it needs to be known if they get loaded correctly. If there were changes to them, how do you manage that? We need to make sure backups are happening on the databases. Occasionally, users have trouble writing the report they need, or they get a result and they don't understand it and they need support. Software that you've used needs to be upgraded. There's lots of things that go on. This is a large system that needs to be supported in an operational manner. So keep in mind that some kind of team will need to be there. Depending on your solution, it doesn't need to be a huge team. This isn't necessarily 50 people supporting it. It could be 2 people. It could be 3. And 1 or 2 of them are part-time doing it. And it really depends on what your solution looks like. But it is important to keep in mind that there needs to be some operational support once the solution is built. Now, very briefly, I'm going to talk about the components of a data warehousing solution. So what this is the technical cornerstone of your BI solution. This is the way you can manage the information that feeds into the BI processes. So stepping through here, I'm going to start with source data. You're going to have a lot of source data both within and external to your company that you may want to bring into the solution. You need to identify those sources, identify the data within those sources, identify the structure and the definition of the data within those sources, and then you can start thinking about the business rules to integrate all that data. If you've got information coming in from order entry and from your sales system and from your customer house file and from your manufacturing system and from accounting, you need to figure out, are we using all the same terms in the same way? Some companies, they might have a question about customer. How many customers do we have? And then someone says, well, how do you define customer? We sell a software product. And if someone buys our software, they pay a fee, and then they take the software and they go use it. Maybe 2-3 years down the road, they might buy an upgrade. Or maybe not. They don't have to. Are they an active customer or not? So what's our definition of active customer? Or when did they become a former customer? So those are some examples of business rules that need to be ironed out. And you can have different definitions. You just need to be able to identify when you're using which definition. And that will help clarify the communication when you're trying to run reports and compare results with other departments. So that's some of what you're doing with the source data. ETL stands for extract, translate, and load. That is the movement of data from one computer system to another. Basically, you're moving data from point A to point B. ETL helps you do that. Sounds simple, but ETL is going to be 75 to 80% of your data warehousing project, because that is where all the actual coding happens. If you are trying to combine records from different databases, you will be doing that logic within the ETL code. That's where the heads-down programming really happens. Now, you may have some concept of master data management or customer data integration, which is what CDI stands for. MDM is master data management. It's all around cleansing the data, deduping customer files, deduping supplier files, information like that. That may or may not be a key part of your solution. It's huge in marketing database solutions, not necessarily as big in all BI solutions, but it can be a component of your solution. Data warehouse is where the data comes together. This is a very simplified view of a data warehouse. We're just showing one logical database here. It may be comprised of many databases. It may have a couple layers within it. We may be doing quite a bit of data manipulation in there. There could be some interim ETL going on. But the concept is we're bringing together the data from all the different data sources, and we're organizing it according to the business model. We're trying to make sense of the data, conform it, have consistent definitions across all the different elements of the data warehouse, and all the data management is really happening in this place. And the reason we want to do that is because when we build our data marts, which are optimized for analysis, we want the marts to be pulling the data from the same place. That helps with data consistency. That helps us to make sure that people who are analyzing the data are looking at the same numbers, or they draw the information from the same place. So if one person does have different numbers than another, they can explain it. They can go back, do an audit, reconcile their information, make sure it makes sense. And then you have that presentation layer. These are the tools that the end users are using to actually view the data or analyze the data or run reports. Now, some of the things that you might see on that presentation layer, this is the eye candy. These are the dashboards that people like to see. A lot of times it's not that glitzy. Sometimes people just want a spreadsheet developed, and most modern day tools now can easily run a report and dump it right into Excel if you need. So for them, it's not so much about the fancy charts and graphs. It's about just getting the information they need when they need it. But if you do need something that's a little more catchy, there's plenty of tools out there that let you do it. The analytics that you're doing, there's a few different ways to look at it. I'd like you to focus along the bottom of the slide here. We've got different ways to look at data. The way that most people first think about it when they're first rolling out a BI solution is we want results right now about how we're doing. So we're not trying to look ahead. We're not trying to do analysis. It's almost like operational reporting, but maybe we combine some data so we can do a little bit more slicing and dicing of the data. But basically, we just want to get results. We want to see how we're performing right now. Now, when we get a little better, when we move up the maturity curve a little bit, now we can start asking questions. We can start asking, why did things turn out this way? I see that one region did a lot better than the other region. Well, I want to drill into that and figure out why and find out, well, this other region, they really like this new product that we rolled out that has a really high profit margin. It sold great in the East, but for some reason it's not selling in the West. But now we know. Now we know why the East did so much better this time than as compared to last time and as compared to the West. And then you start getting into the predictive capabilities. Now that we know that this product did so well in the East, what about that product was appealing to the people in the East, and what about it was not appealing to the people in the West? And can we make adjustments? And if we make those adjustments, what do we think our results can be in the West? And the predictive analytics can potentially help us with that. That's what we want to get to. Now, there's another term you've probably heard before. It's called data mining and data modeling also. I want to talk about that a little bit. When we talk about data mining and modeling, we're really getting into the arena of statistics. And these are usually the more heavy-duty statistics. When we talk about analysis, we're typically talking about those top 6 statistics that are used more than any other, and that's the average, min, max, sum, count, and median. And those are the ones that are used a lot for analysis. But when we go beyond that, when we start to look at correlations and causations, that's when we're starting to get into statistics. And then you can get into the data modeling, which is even more heavy-duty statistics. and start looking at things like the linear regressions, time series analysis, factor analysis, cluster analysis. And these are things that are used typically by people that have a PhD in statistics. They know how to crunch the data very well. They know all these different tools, and they use specific statistical packages. You know, ones that you've probably heard before, like SAS, SPSS, or the open source one called R, the letter R. Those are very good at doing that. So these things are providing even more and more insightful and deeper information about your data that can be part of the BI solution. Although you're probably not going to use your BI tool. If you have a tool that runs reports for you, that's probably not the tool you're going to use to do this kind of analysis. The way it usually works is you've got your statisticians. They ask for a raw data set, which can be pulled out of the warehouse. They manipulate that data, and they pipe it into their statistics package, and they perform this analysis. The conclusions they come up with can then be fed back into the BI solution, into the whole data warehouse architecture. For example, if they build a model and they have identified the profile of top customers, anytime they get a new customer, if they can get the information about the customer they need, you know, what their age is, what their income is, what their homeowner status is, home ownership status is, then they can run it through the model and they can give that person a score. And they can find out right away, are they a top customer, are they a bottom customer, are they somewhere in the middle? But that data mining allowed that to happen very quickly and easily, and it can be folded back into the whole system. Predictive analytics, likewise, you know, we're using these advanced analytics. My previous example, we were able to score customers and figure out if they're a good one or a bad one. Well, we can assign lifetime values to those customers. If you're a #1 customer, we can expect over the next 10 years, for example, we're going to get X amount of revenue out of you. And we're going to expect that you're going to buy this kind of product mix. Well, that's some of the predictive analysis that can be done and can be built into the system, and that can help with predictions about how much of what we want to produce or how much of what we want to sell or put in the stores. Those are the different kinds of things that we want to be able to project. And all the data mining that we've done can help build the models, can help us be predictive, and make that information through our BI solution available to the decision makers to help run the company in the right direction. So about these analytics, I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between OLAP or reporting. OLAP is online analytical processing. Basically, it's the kind of reporting you're used to seeing when you hear about reporting, as opposed to data mining. You know, the top one here, what was the response rate to our mailing? We mailed out 1 million postcards. How many people got the postcard, looked at it, saw the 800 number on the postcard, and picked up the phone and called? You know, that's what a response rate is. The data mining side would ask the question, what is the profile of the people who are likely to respond to future mailings? So if we want to mail out another 1 million pieces, another 1 million postcards, yeah, that's a lot of money. By the time you identify who to mail it to, you've got to buy a list, or you're sending to your home file. You've got to put postage on each of those. You know, you work out with the post office. Someone's got to design the postcard. You got to work with sales and marketing to figure out what offer you're putting on the postcard. There's a big cost with this. So when you decide to spend that money and mail out those postcards, you want to mail it to the right people. And that's what data mining can help you with. Data mining can say, if you mail to these type of people, here's the response rate we expect based on the data mining that we've done. So that's the difference at a high level between OLAP and data mining. Another thing I'll point out, if you look at data mining, all these questions here we're asking, which existing customers are likely to buy our next new product? Which customers are likely to switch to the competition? The next one has the word potential in it, and we see likely again. We see expected. Data mining is helping you to basically apply probabilities to your actions. And that's why you see the kind of questions here that data mining will answer. OLAP, on the other hand, has much more specific verbs. You know, who were my 10 best customers? Which customers defaulted? What were sales by region? Very specific things that are being delivered. So there's your difference conceptually between OLAP and data mining. Data mining, you're dealing with probabilities. OLAP, you're looking at hard numbers. And then finally, here's this TDWI maturity model. This gives you, and there's a lot more detail behind this, but this is a good overview of what the model looks like. If you read the bullet points under each of these stages here, you can get a sense for where your organization is with regard to BI. A lot of companies have started in the prenatal stage, and just over time they've kept spending a little here, a little there, and eventually, they've moved up the curve. Others have decided that maybe they're in the prenatal stage, and they want to become mature very quickly. And they define a large program that they're going to focus on, and they get there within a couple of years. They work hard, they invest the money, they dedicate the people, and they can get there. But you can see the types of things that need to be in place for you to be considered in each one of these stages. And just a little thing about the graph at the top there, you see the two things, the two gaps. There's a gulf and there's a chasm. What that is pointing out is that it is hard to make that step. It is hard to make the step from infant to child, and it is even harder to make the step from teenager to adult. You're really making some big changes to your organization when you get into the adult level, and it not only takes investment, it takes quite a bit of support from the people in the organization to make that happen. So let's see, I think that is what we have for today. Anyway, we've got about 10 minutes left. I think Ray was going to be capturing questions if any came in, and I think I will turn it back over to Ray and see if anyone does have any questions.
Great, thank you, Todd. Great job and a ton of information. I know I'm guessing that quite a few folks feel like they just took a big drink from a fire hose. So some good stuff to process here. And we don't have any questions yet, but as is typical, we'll start seeing them flood in here as we get close to wrapping up. But I thought maybe while we're waiting to see if anybody has some questions to throw out there, we could circle back around to something you and I were talking about earlier today. And let me just go to some notes here that as we were talking, I wanted to come back around to, and that is the kind of the new buzzword these days with the term big data, kind of being thrown around a lot. Maybe that's new to some people. Maybe it's something that some people have talked about or heard about. But what is big data, and how does that play into business intelligence?
Big data is a term that's been becoming more and more popular over the last year or so, I'd say. It came about because of some new technologies that are in place. You've probably heard of Hadoop or NoSQL. Hadoop is something that was developed to help companies like Amazon and Google to manage a whole lot of data and get fast responses to questions. It's a new and innovative way to store data. There's lots of data replication involved, and the structure of the data is such that a question can be asked and get a very quick answer from this structure, as opposed to the traditional relational database structure. When you're talking about tens of terabytes of data on a relational database, it oftentimes can be very onerous on the system and thus slow to get the answer that you need. Big data is, the whole concept is around storing lots and lots of data, multiple terabytes going up to petabytes, and being able to access and use that data pretty quickly. So it will be and can be part of BI solutions. The way I've seen it used so far is that it's a lot of times used as a pre-processor of data. Think of clicks, web stream data. Clicks on a website. If you're a big web presence, you've got millions of clicks coming in all the time. You want to be able to load all that data into a structure, do some kind of analysis very quickly, and move the results into your warehouse, where you can then do better analysis on it and trending analysis, things like that. So again, just think about big data as massive amounts of data. Could be call detail records, could be clicks on a website, and then it is a way to accept, ingest, and process that data, make sense of it, and then make it available to the rest of your BI solution.
Okay, great. We'll consider that a bonus piece of information for those of our attendees that hadn't heard about big data or didn't know what it is. Now you can take that and throw that around the office today or on a phone call with the client and be on the cutting edge of the business intelligence lingo. What I'll do here, Todd, is give our attendees kind of a last call for questions. We haven't seen any come in yet, but while we're doing that, let me just do a couple of detailed summaries. So we did just have one come in, so keep them coming. And let me do a quick pre-wrap up, and then we'll hit that question as well as any others that might come in as I'm moving towards the wrap up here. And that is we did have some early issues today recording the webinar, so the first couple minutes of it were cut off, but I was able to get some help from one of our other attendees from Extivia, and he's recording the webinar. And even though the first part of it's going to be truncated a little bit, we will process that and have that up on our website within the next few days. We'll send a follow-up email to all of our attendees to let you know how to access that, and that should probably come out early next week probably with some of the processing of the video issues we had. So the question that came up here, and again, last call, we'll address this question and any others that come in after that, and if no more come in, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. But the question is, what is the difference between BA and BI?
So the acronyms themselves, there's probably two different ways you can look at this. First of all, BI is business intelligence. BA usually is business analysis, or as a role of business analyst. And the way they differ, business analysis typically is trying to figure out how a business is operating, what kinds of processes are working well, what are not working well, how do they work, documenting that information. Business intelligence can help provide some of the information to a business analyst to answer those questions. Business analysts may be trying to figure out how well their sales organization is functioning, and in order to answer some of those questions, they need information. The BI solution can provide the information to help the analyst perform that analysis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that covers it for me. And if our attendee who posed that question has a follow-up question, feel free to pose that. If not, that concludes both Todd's presentation and the questions, and we'll take them right up until we close here. So if you have one that you want to squeeze in, go ahead. But I'm going to go ahead and point out a couple things on the last slide here, Todd, and that is in the lower left corner, you've got our website, extivia.com, and also the website that'll get you some more details on Todd's particular department within Extivia, the connectknowledge.com website, as well as his number, 303-730-7171. And as always, we're glad to be available to you to support you and any questions or needs that you might have as a follow-up to this webinar. And I would like to just go back to what we opened with as a reminder of who we are, Extivia. We have solutions and services covering business intelligence and data warehousing, obvious based on today's presentation, but we also provide services including data management, portal development, and application development, and a new service around the topic of organizational change management. So if you need any more information on any of those, or if you'd like to put in a request for support or talk to somebody about any of those services, the best way to do that is to go to extivia.com and either fill out a form, or you'll see our phone number there, and you can contact our office directly using that phone number. So I did see one more question come up here. Let me click over to see what this is. And Todd, if you have that up, you can jump in. Let me pull my screen. Oh, it was a thank you. And with that, thank you to our attendees. And Todd, thank you to you. I know you put a lot of time in putting this together. I'm sure on behalf of our attendees, we're all very grateful. thank you for that, and have a great rest of your Thursday to you, Todd, and the rest of our audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.